First, for those of you who have been joining us for many nights, you know I really like to start our evening by dropping in, just taking a moment to drop in. So as we continue to let people in, if you are already settled, I just invite you to take a breath. Let your eyes close. Let yourself settle. Tonight we're going to be talking about masculine, feminine. The masculine in us pulls us forward, pulls us in and out. We just want to get really grounded. So letting your breath travel down your throat, down through the whole center column of your body. So the inhalation almost has like a weight. Without using much effort, see if you can let the inhale have a little bit of weight that lands in your pelvis, that lands you in your chair. So much of the energy for hot relating lives below the neck. There's some creativity, there's some ideas that come from above the neck. There's some activities that come from above the neck. But the source of the energy we want to integrate is below the neck. So as we allow these folks to arrive, giving yourself the gift of time. The feminine part of all of us, whether you're in a male body or a female body or a fluid body, the feminine part of us does not like to be rushed. She takes her time. She might want to smell the roses. She might want to get a different drink than the one she chose to bring to this session. She might want to just admire the outfit she chose to wear. Twirl her hair, Zoom, we're all looking at ourselves all the time. So just taking these first moments to feel what it feels like to take it slow. To let your breath be your cocktail for this happy hour, at least for this first minute or two. Can you get a little intoxicated? Just on the oxygen flowing across your lips, down your throat. Maybe your exhale could feel like champagne bubbles rising up your spine. So many people come to me wondering how they can get turned on. Like, where is my turn on? Where did it go? Maybe the champagne breath is just enough for that little effervescent spark that you were seeking. It seems so elusive, and yet it's right there. We just aren't taught how to access it, and our modern society honestly doesn't value it that much. They value the goal, they value the end result. But this education is an invitation to a journey with no real end goal. Loving better, that's a lifetime. That's a lifetime journey. That's not something we ever finish. Who would ever want to finish that? Well, now that you hopefully feel a little bit more alive, a little bit more grounded, a little bit more tingly, perhaps, a little bit more present to possibility, I invite you to allow your eyes to flutter open if they have not already, to bring yourself with as much ease, as much pleasure as is possible to your technology. We are fighting a little bit of an uphill battle with technology, but I have to say I'm so grateful to be with all of you tonight. So thank you for carving out some time to come be with me, my guest, Krista, who I'm going to bring on in a moment. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's been so fun to be here these last few nights with all of you. Tomorrow night is our last night. Hopefully you'll join us again. So tonight, we're going to dive into another one of these key skills. So I've been studying kind of this art of love for, well, I guess we're all studying it for our whole lives. But it makes a difference to get good teachers to actually go into conscious study, the way we went to school for the degrees that we got, or the way we hire a trainer or a coach when we want to learn something new. So I undertook that kind of learning, conscious, committed learning, about 12 years ago. And it's been an amazing education. We're not going to cover 12 years of education in 5 days. So I've kind of distilled it down to these 5 essential skills. And the one that we're really diving into tonight is the ability to navigate, to know the difference and to navigate and to embrace our masculine energy and our feminine energy and that of a partner. And I chose this because in particular today, in this modern era, it's just never been more important because we are modern empowered women, which is awesome. We want to be all the things, and we should be all the things. None of this is designed to take us back to some 1950s housewife, disempowered, without choice, dependent on a man. This is actually designed to support you in crushing it in the world and having the turn on and the juice and the intimacy and the surrender so that when you want to be ravished, you can be. And when you want to take the lead, you can. So these are muscles, these are skills that can be tuned up and built. And we're going to talk about some of that tonight. We're also going to practice a little bit in that. And I'm also if anyone is willing and interested toward the end of this to come on to actually ask a question live and get help live, I'm going to offer that. So you can have that in the back of your mind. If you're shy about that, you can put a question in the chat and I will answer it without actually bringing you on camera. But it's a kind of a unique opportunity. This is free and you have the opportunity to get something that might change your life. So I would encourage you to consider if that might make a difference for you. So what is getting in the way of this turn on that we all crave so much? And honestly, crushing it in the world is, while great in many ways, it is one of the things that is getting in our way. Technology is something that is getting in our way. And in long-term partnership, it can simply be that we know each other so well. So we just don't have that same kind of sparkiness that we had in the beginning. And so I don't know about you, but I've certainly had this where we come together with our partner. So we might rush from our day. Now we're going to have a date night. Yeah. Let's have our date night. So we rush from our work day. Maybe we rush through our shower and then we run down the stairs or we drive out to the restaurant in traffic. And then it's kind of a misfire. It's not bad maybe, but it's not what we hoped it would be. And oftentimes this happens because two people both coming together in a kind of flatlined or dry state doesn't create that kind of juiciness. And so tonight we're going to dive into some of our masculine, but also this feminine energy that is your birthright. How do you spark that up? How do you access that for yourself? Not because it's your job, not because he deserves it, but because it's the pathway to feeling the way that you want to feel. And when you bring some of that to the moment is one that you actually want to live in. So one of the things I really want to leave you with is this view that you aren't doing this to fix a man, to please a man, or whoever, even if you're in a same gendered partnership. If you're the one who's taken on the work, the idea of improving the relationship or something, we just kind of want to put our attention on what is the moment I want to have? What is the moment I want to have? And then what are my tools and skills and energies that I can bring to have that moment be more of what I want? And the thing that's really great about that is not only does it take the blame and the resentment off the other person, it has kind of a biological reaction of bringing them toward the energy and presence that you actually desire. But instead of putting your attention on them, you put your attention on yourself, because guess what? that's all you actually have control over. So all this work I teach and practice myself and all of that, I bring it to my partner, but a lot of the study and practice is with myself or in groups of other women, because that is actually where my skill set, my toolkit starts. And then when I work on that and I develop those muscles and I bring it, it makes a huge difference with my partner, because instead of asking him with words what I want, or telling him that I don't like what I'm getting, or showing him energetically that so there's a juicy way to show that we don't like what we're getting, and there's kind of a closed, contracted way. Most of us are very practiced at disapproval, at closure, and we hope he's going to get the message. So in this practice, we get much more overt and much more emotional and much more expressed, and it actually opens so much more love. Even if we are saying no, even if we're saying, it has this amazing impact of creating energy, which is actually what we crave when we say we want turn on. So that's a lot of talking. I have a beautiful guest here with me tonight who I want to bring on, my longtime student and my good friend, Krista. Again, I have the two of us spotlighted. I'm not sure, depending on what device you're on, if that works for you, but I think if you choose speaker view, you'll be able to see both of us. You might see a lot of Zoom boxes too, which we're all used to these days. So however you're having it, I hope it works for you. Krista, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Krista is an amazing coach who helps women step into their leadership in the world. And in a moment, I'm gonna have you kind of introduce yourself. But one of the reasons why I brought her on tonight is, so many of you know I teach sensually embodied movement besides this relationship stuff. And Krista became a student of mine, and she got so much out of it that she actually has threaded, and I come and teach her women this embodied practice as part of her program. And I was just amazed, like how many business coaches out there are integrating sensual movement and seeing that as an elevation, as an amplifier of women's leadership and their effectiveness in the world. And she also has a juicy marriage, although she is a newlywed, so she doesn't yet qualify for the long term, but I love that you guys both work together and also manage to have a juicy, hot relationship. So we're going to dive into a lot of those things, but I just want to turn it over to you and ask you, first of all, to kind of what you'd like to say to presence yourself in the space. And then in particular, what led you to integrate sensual movement into your coaching?
Thank you, Allie. And it's so amazing to be here with you and all the women here. And I'm just honored to be a guest with you in your series. I come from a background where I was working inside of companies as a consultant for a long time. And while I loved the work I was doing and I was having an impact, I knew something was kind of off. I knew that I wasn't totally on my thing because I was not as turned on by my work in the world as I knew I should be. And I was, just like, I thought something was wrong with me. I thought something, I didn't know if I would ever get there. And eventually, and I'll get into why I incorporate dance into some of my programs, is because what I'm learning is that our relationship with our work in the world can be as much as a turn on, if not more, than our relationship in the world. And if we are actually honing what it is that's truly ours to do. And, I think a lot of my work is getting women out of the shoulds that what we should be doing. You referred to the 1950s housewife. We actually, as women, have inside of our bodies, inside of our genes, intergenerational imprints about who we should be in the world and what we should be doing. And so a lot of my work is around going from participating with our work in the world from a very kind of unconscious or conscious subordination to other people's values or dreams, to a very conscious sovereignty to what's actually ours to do in the world and how we find our voice, which leads me to why I'm integrating some of the sensual dance into some of my programs.
Love it. So yeah, and just, I guess as part of that, what did I, and you'll share it, but what did sensual dance open up for you that had you make this connection between our feminine? So the sensual dance, I mean, many of you actually do this dance practice with me or with other teachers. It's really, it's not what some people would consider dance because there's no choreography. It's actually the awakening of our organic feminine energy, our emotions, our sensuality, and really getting in touch with the authentic beauty that we actually are and the life force that we are. So how did you make that connection?
Yeah, well, here's, I've done before sensual dance, I've done a lot of work in my own sexuality, which has been super impactful. And it gave me a taste towards what's possible about my own connection to my work through exploring my own sexuality. When I found sensual dance, what I discovered is that sensual dance gives me access to what I call erotic intelligence. So erotic intelligence, not what I call, what many people call erotic intelligence, which I'll just describe here is erotic intelligence is generative, creative, transforming energy, which sexuality and sex might be a little piece of that, but it's not the whole thing. And what I found with the sensual dance, much like we do with meditation, much like we do with orgasm, if we use it in this way, much like we do with exercise, is that sensual dance opens up what's called in our brain the default mode network, which is like basically where our ego it gets stuck. Mm-hmm. And if we're going into something like sensual dance, and the way that you specifically do it is it actually opens up possibility that we didn't previously see, because we get in touch with a kind of intelligence that's mm-hmm. not in our heads, the kind of thing that you were talking about before. And when I work with women, the reason why I bring it in is because that's to me a direct link to this kinds of intelligence if we're using our dance in that way to discover, wow, okay, I find my power here. I find my voice here, mm-hmm. my authentic sovereign voice here. I find my edges here that I can't find that if I'm just thinking about or out in the world doing what I should be doing or show up how I should be showing up. And there's so much more to say about that, but that's the basic reason of like, I need as much support as I can to support these women and the women I work with to see and experience new possibility in this erotic intelligence realm.
Yeah, I love that so much. As modern women, we are in this, like we are having to redefine what these terms even mean. We kind of went through our mothers, or maybe even older than that, a generation where being feminine meant being at home, without a lot of choices, with a lot of dependency. And really the only expectation of you was to raise the family and kind of take care of that household. Then we went to this more liberated stage of feminism, and kind of feminine got like a bad rap. And so, one of the things that I really stand for, this is ours. Like it was, why did we write this off? Why did we disown this incredibly powerful, and who's suffering the most over it? We are, because we're not as turned on and juicy. And so again, to me, I love this idea of incorporating, leveraging, isn't that weird to put those two words together? Leverage erotic intelligence for your life as like a superpower. But it really is ours to reclaim. Like it's this patriarchal society that we're in, are the ones who kind of put that down, but women have at times in history enabled that as well. So just for a moment before we go back, I just want to we're all in different places on the spectrum of like how we feel about words like masculine and feminine, mm-hmm. and what we even think those words are. So I'm going to offer you kind of the working definition that I most frequently use. And who knows, we are in such an era of evolution. Within a couple of years, there may be very different terms to describe what I'm about to say. But the way that I'm going to use these terms is that the masculine in us is the part of us that, it's the part of us that is structure and direction. It's like the riverbanks. They hold the structure. They set the direction for the river. And then the feminine in us is the river. Much more chaotic, quite strong. Like the feminine energy actually ultimately shapes the riverbanks. The riverbanks kind of hold the river from like going everywhere. So the feminine in us is everything that changes our senses, our emotions, our feelings. The part of us that feels is our feminine energy. So that's how I'm using those terms. And one great example that I love to use is that your masculine energy is what got you to this call. It had you handle time and technology and physically like moving yourself from wherever you were to here. Your masculine energy actually got you here. But it's highly, highly probable that your feminine heart is what had you want to. And this is like what we want to try to have in our relationships, honoring the desires, knowing the desires of our heart, our feminine heart, that wants and desires and craves and feels and feeds. And we want to find a way to offer that if you have a masculine partner so that he provides some of that structure and direction to fulfill those needs. It doesn't mean you can't meet your own needs. Women today, very capable of meeting our own needs. But if you both have the need and you fill the need, it does tend to have a diminishing, flatlining impact on the hotness, the chemistry, the attraction, the polarity. So one of the things that I teach is, and we may do some of this tonight, how can a modern, empowered, sovereign woman cultivate conscious surrender? So when she wants to, she has it in her nervous system to play a different role, to enable what she really wants is to not have to do everything. And yet there's a way we pattern ourselves through life that actually inhibits our evoking, inviting, and creating someone else to step in and give to us. So I'm not saying we should do any of this, but I do offer it that oftentimes I find with women, we actually crave to surrender, to lie back, to be taken, to be, have a date planned for us, have a vacation planned for us, have food ordered for us. We're worn out from doing it all. So how nice would it be to have someone do some of that for us? And yet the muscle of doing for ourselves, of leaning in, has been so hyper developed. So I'm not against that muscle, but I think we need to put as much, kind of 10,000 hours into one. You kind of need to put at least a few hours into the other if you have any hope of being able to find it in a moment when you want it. So that's kind of how I use masculine, feminine. Some other teachers out there call it alpha, omega. I also like these words go and flow. If you don't like the words masculine and feminine, if go and flow works better for you, as you wish. These words are definitely not designed to be disempowering or to take us back to some framework that doesn't work. I think we're all learning and adapting to a new gender vocabulary and sexuality vocabulary. So I'm doing my best. We're all doing our best. I ask your forgiveness if those aren't great words for you. If you have better ones, please pop them in the chat. I'm constantly looking for alternatives. Anyway, just a little bit of a sidebar there on the masculine feminine piece, because I want to ask you, Krista, I know you and your husband Will, you support him in his mission, in his work. You're always posting a lot of things about, this kind of couple working together, all that stuff. How do you navigate this, working together and also having it fuel your relationship in a juicy, turned on way?
Yeah, great question. And just to clarify, we do some work together and then we have our separate businesses. But to answer your question, and I love that I have discovered this with Will, which is basically the way we keep it super juicy is we allow each other and support each other in getting in deepest touch with what actually brings us alive. So what do we actually stand for in the world? What are we actually devoted to in the world? Which sometimes looks like the same thing, and sometimes it doesn't look like the same thing. And when each of us are actually in touch with that, and we're supporting each other in that aliveness and staying on that path, it becomes really juicy for us. If we start to notice that one of us is drifting off into the shoulds or the, doing something that's not in our values, and then we're not having the juicy days and coming home to each other and getting excited about what we're sharing, then it's when things go off the rails and we have to be like, okay, hold on, like, wait a minute, like, where are we not actually doing the things that are within our values such that we're now like not relating in a way that feels good.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, those of you that have been with me in these last couple nights or work with me in any capacity, you know, like I use turn on, it's exactly what you're speaking to, aliveness. So turn on, we have, you know, our culture makes everything sexual. And then also we're very repressed. So we kind of glamorize sexuality and then we're also terrified of it. And, you know, as a result, we end up in this in an upbringing, in a cultural milieu that doesn't offer us a lot of healthy guidance and development in this area. So this invitation to let turn on be like when you turn on a light switch, it's energy. It's going from feeling flat to feeling alive. That is what turn on is. Now, then if you're with someone who you love or someone who you find attractive, that energy often manifests itself in the kind of frisson, the kind of, you know, attraction that we want. But yes, we are into our work and like, why not use a lot of that juiciness from that? It's really aliveness. And how do we go from flatline to aliveness that makes, you know, such a difference?
Yeah, Ellie, I also want to add too is as a couple, we are also very clear about what we're up to as a couple. Like we have a mission basically for our coupleship. And if we ever get off of the juiciness, which part of our mission is staying inside of what you're calling turn on, what we're calling aliveness, generativity. If we get off of that, we can come back to our mission like, okay, hold on, we're not moving forward what we're up to inside of our coupleship. So then let's look at what's going on. That's not happening.
Yep. Yeah, no, it makes complete sense. When my husband and I were on our first, so I'm in an 18-year partnership, our first international trip, he turned to me on the plane and he said, what's the purpose of our relationship? Let's create a purpose for our relationship. And I was like, like that all felt so dry. Like, what is that? But you know, our purpose was like mind-blowing sex, you know, honest, real communication, and you know, lifetime growth and development. And those three pillars, it just totally transformed how I felt. So I couldn't agree with you more. And here's one thing that kind of clarity offers is that I have a foundation to go to my husband if I want us to do a sex course, or hear from women all the time, like they want to do it, but how do I bridge into this with my partner? So one avenue is getting alignment, not at a bad moment, at a good moment, at a creative moment, you know, that this is actually a shared interest, that you're actually both committed to this as a domain of study and practice and all of that. So I love that. And I'm a huge fan of, having healthy conversation about sex, which often happens like not in the bedroom because there's a difference. It's this masculine feminine dynamic. Oftentimes when we're in conversation, we are in our kind of a masculine mode because we're using our brain, we're using logic or reason, and that does not often evoke the kind of juicy reaction that we would want. So kind of saving conversation for meals or a time when you are dealing with a topic, you want to have conversation, but being really intentional about when you want an intimate moment, what is the energy that you are bringing? And we've done lots of energies over the last 3 days. The replays are out there if you guys want. Lots of ways to bring subtle energy, to bring new energy, to open a moment into that kind of chemistry, that kind of attraction that we want. Creating a mission, I don't know how much chemistry that's going to create in the moment. It's more what it sets up. That's your masculine. That's your masculine saying, I will invest in this structure now because look at what, then I have this. I can ask for whatever I want because we got this agreement. Your feminine can get really juicy over what is kind of agreed upon. When the feminine doesn't kind of know what's happening, sometimes she gets kind of irritated. So.
Yeah. I mean, I can say that it turns me on to create a mission. So
it does.
because it allows me to get into my imagination and my creativity and to think outside the box. If I have to think inside the box, then I don't, then I don't like that as far as my nonlinear, feminine.
I love that. Hey, anyone who gets turned on by creating, if you know how to do reactions in Zoom, I don't get turned on by creating a mission, but you can put a little heart on your window if you get turned on. And I think it's super awesome to we'd love to get some participation from you all in here. So how is this resonating? Does anybody have a question? You can raise your Zoom hand because we can't see your physical hands. You can pop a question in the chat. Yeah, this is very much of an individual, like navigational, process of you to figure out with your partner what works. You know, the most important thing, really, honestly, is that you be on a similar page. But some of these tools can help if you are not on the same page of like, how do you get onto the same page? So we've been talking for a while. I want to also take this into somewhat of an embodied piece. And I just want to say, we opened this session with a drop-in slowing down meditation. We have, not all of us and not all the time, but it's kind of a historic complaint for women that men come in hard and fast. They're just used to, they were socialized, they were acclimatized into get hard, get off, get hard, get off, whether that was a magazine or porn or something, and what's back to this, our reclamation. Women oftentimes got onto that same bandwagon as well. Not necessarily with porn, although sometimes with porn, vibrators, it's a way of relaxing. It's a way of changing my mood. I'm just going to like jam that in. And, it's not that it doesn't feel good. But just to consider that when you go for a lot of stimulation, quick and done, it is your masculine energy. And then, can you create some times for yourself, that you give yourself a lot more time, that you even take away the goal of what we think of as orgasm. And in some of the programs I do, we get into much more sophisticated sexuality, where you can actually put your entire body into a state of orgasm. It's a gentler process, it's a subtler process, but it can go on for a long, long, long time. So this domain of feminine sexuality, as we reclaim femininity and feminine energy, the endless pleasure that is available when we kind of unhook from this masculinization that we have like allowed to happen. And I'm not anti-vibrator. It's just really being conscious. What I am is pro-conscious, like know what you're doing. And then you have choices in all of this. It doesn't only have to be, one way. So with that said, I would love to take you, I'm going to make this fairly quick because I do want to have time for anyone who wants to ask a question. But I would love to take you into a little bit of a meditation that allows you to feel your masculine energy and your feminine energy distinct from all these words. Because the way we really make it real is in our bodies. So you can go off camera, you can stay on camera. This isn't a big movement practice, but you can, if you want to stand up, if you would prefer to do it that way, or you can do it seated. And Krista, you can do it along with us. So the first thing is to root yourself down. If you're standing, you're going to separate your feet. And if you're seated, you can also separate your feet a little bit. You're going to allow yourself to return to that heaviness we found in the beginning. Imagining that there are roots shooting down from your feet, from your sits bones, through the soles of your feet, down into the core of the earth. Inhaling, letting the weight drop, letting your thighs spread out if you're seated, letting your weight land, letting your feet spread out so you can feel all four corners. Continually grounding your roots down 20 feet, 50 feet, 100 feet. And then I invite you to begin to feel yourself as a huge redwood tree or an oak tree or a sequoia, a giant, solid tree. And this will take some imagination, but you are related in this solid posture, legs apart, feet apart, grounding down. And as a tree, you are alive, so there is sensation moving, but it's inside. You're not actually moving. It's all inside. So feel how as a tree you would be fed by this energy as sunshine comes in, as air, as water comes in. Let your breath Let these elements nourish you while you hold this grounded stillness. You're becoming still while alive, filled with the energy of life. Deep, full breath, spreading your branches out wide and deep, strong, completely still. You feel it all, but you're not moving with it. This is your masculine energy. That which does not move, that which feels it all, but does not move with it all. Let yourself be fed by the air around you, by your own breath. Receive these nutrients. And then as you breathe, I want you to begin to transform in your mind's eye. You're bringing this to your own self with your imagination, transforming from a giant sequoia to bamboo. So bamboo still puts deep roots down, but it's resilient. It's a little bit flexible. You're going to begin to find a transition. Maybe there's a slight bit of movement. Maybe it's just in your fingertips. Feeling how you can find roots down, but still this gentle sway. And now as you sway, I invite you to imagine that there's a breeze that starts to blow. It's gentle at first. Let your body respond. Your little leaves begin to stir. And now this wind begins to pick up. It's a gust. Now you're really moving, you're really waving. And as this wind gets stronger, letting yourself now become the wind. So no longer bamboo, you are the wind. You are all that moves, that blows. Keep your connection to the earth and your ground, but you can bring in a little bit of chaos. Maybe you're a storm, maybe you're a hurricane. Just fully expressing this rootless energy. Letting yourself be all the life, all the motion, all the energy of the wind, the chaos. This is a teeny tiny taste of the feminine. Maybe imagine a little rain starts to fall, a gentle rain. Letting it drip, going back to the bamboo that you were, letting the wind exit, becoming bamboo, feeling gentle raindrops on your skin. Your movement becomes smaller. You feel everything. Feel how your heart might reach for a raindrop. This is your feminine feeling, responding. You are part of nature. You are of nature. You're still grounded, but you are of nature. And then letting your breath get a little deeper, a little more solid. Let the rain stop. Feeling the dampness, bringing yourself to stillness, connecting once again to that solid trunk, deep roots, that giant tree. Finding stillness. The only movement is eternal. The energy flows up and down inside of you. And as you are no longer caught up in and becoming the energy of the wind or the rain, feel how vast your energy is, how it goes up to the sky and down to the core of the earth. Let it reach outside your walls of your home. Let it reach across your neighborhood. Let it reach all the women on this call. Let yourself be rooted down, branches out, feeling the life force inside you, but not moving with it. Returning again to conscious presence, all that never changes, that is witness to what moves, witness to what changes, but is itself grounded and still. And then just taking a breath there, and when you're ready, bringing all of your masculine and all of your feminine and everything in between back to our call. Would love to hear from some of you how that was. You can raise your hand and we'll bring you on live while people are coming back. You can go on video. You could pop a comment in the chat. I'd love to hear from Krista how that was for you. What did you feel? What did you notice? Could you see that offering anything in your life?
Thank you, Allie, for taking us through that. It was interesting. What I noticed was that each element that you brought in, no matter how you labeled it, I could be in touch with both the masculine and the feminine of each element at the same time, which the exercise felt amazing and wonderful. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. One of the things that was such a mind-blowing transformation for me when I started learning about all this was I realized that what I thought was fatiguing me, I thought what was fatiguing me was being in my masculine too much. But it wasn't. When I'm purely in that energy, it actually feels great. I feel grounded. I feel alive. It was my unhealthy feminine. It was like when I was resenting what I was doing, I wasn't cleanly in it. Part of me was doing it and part of me was not wanting to do it. And I think that distinction that you just said of like how nourishing and energizing it can be. Yes to your masculine and yes to your feminine, but distinctly in one and distinctly in the other, or even in both at the same time, but with a distinction of both. That's why I love that rain on your leaves and all that kind of thing. Because we don't notice these distinctions until someone helps us see it. I didn't know that either, but beautiful description, Krista.
And I think I love that you said earlier on that the masculine and feminine language might work for some people, it might not. I think for me, it's a little bit of a different nuance in each single moment. So I think I just want to represent the difference that the language that we use, and I appreciate you.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think one of the things that's really helpful with masculine feminine is a lot of the people who come to me and join my programs and coaching and stuff, they are a woman in a relationship with a man. And so if we can remember that we, for the most part, are this much more chaotic energy and they are this more still energy. And some of us, these days, a lot of men, millennial men for sure, are very in touch with their more emotional side, what we call this feminine energy. If your partner is an artist or a musician, a chef, they may actually, and you're a CEO, I mean, they may have a lot more feminine energy than you do. The challenge we have with why what's missing when we're not feeling the turn on, a lot of times that's because we're both occupying the same, we're flowing in the same energy. We're both trying to solve the problem, or we're both like, I don't know, what do you want to do? Or I don't know, what do you want to do? And it just feels flat. Like if he's like, I don't know, what do you want to do? And you're like, I'll tell you what I want to do. The moment just got hotter, And if you want him to decide, instead of being like, well, I might want Chinese, it's like, but be yummy. And he's going to step in there with something. And if he says Mexican and that's the last thing you want, you don't have to go to Mexican. You can just be like, not Mexican, whatever you fucking, whatever you want to do. I think that's my first slip up in these recordings. Whatever you want, you get to have what you want and you get to open love. This is the toolkit. This is not you doing all the work. This is you being an angel of love, being an oracle of love, being a superpower of the feminine and getting everything you want while he feels like a hero who's winning. I don't know anyone who doesn't want that, or her or whoever you're in relationship with. So your partner feels like they're winning and you get what you want. I don't know. That's why I do this.
I love what you're up to, Allie. Thank you.
All right, gals, who wants to ask a question? Does nobody really have a question after all these days of all these concepts and all these practices? Lee, yes, I can always count on my sister. She's my biggest participant. She does all my women's groups. I love her to death. It's making a huge difference in her life. Thank you for going first.
Sure, totally. This has been a fabulous exploration. Love, Krista, what you're adding into this conversation. And I will say that before the exercise we just did, I was kind of feeling full of, well, he's the tree trunk, and climbing over that to touch aliveness can really stop me sometimes. Going through the exercise, it felt really cool to feel my masculine. And then when I went into the wind, that was like such a relief. I felt so happy and safe and free to be the wind. And now I feel a lot readier to go to him, like the wind, and like it's going to be good. You know, I just feel it. But two questions. One is, anything you guys have to say about when I feel stopped by him being the wall or whatever, how to kind of not be stopped by that. And two, winning. You just said, like, you know, you're getting what you want and he feels like he's winning. How do you know what he feels like? It feels like winning. You know, obviously I have some thoughts, but I'm interested in your comments on that.
Yes, beautiful. Okay, so several things. First of all, did everyone notice how both of Lee's questions were about him? She wants to know how, if he's winning, and, you know, if it's how I can, he's a wall and how can I? They're about you too, you know, and I'm going to speak to you. And it's so, you just illustrated it so beautifully. So actually all three parts, because what I'm going to say was in your first share. The answer to the first question of what do I do about him being a wall lies in your first, what you shared. The game is you being in love with you. You being the wind, if that feels good. You being whatever that feels good. And letting whether it works with him be secondary. Getting more interested in trying something new, in creating a moment that feels good. Now, if you then want a moment with him, so first you find the moment that feels good to you. And then there's that place where we notice he's like a wall. We feel he's like a wall. Do I really want to bring my wind in there? It might not be a good time, or my wind might not be received well. You know, our brain, our ego, our protection, our caretaking him, he's busy. All those pieces start to shut down the gift that the wind is. Now, there's a sensitivity to this. We did subtle body energy the other day. This is a long one to develop. There is a sensitivity to feeling into how to bring it to the moment so that it is received well. So if he's really busy, my invitation to you, if he's a wall because he's busy, is to bring the wind like a mist. Just fill the room he's in with the wind. Just gift the space he is in with the natural magic that you are. As the wind, as the starlight, he will feel it. You remember you were doing the subtle body practice on the headphones, and he reached over and took your hand, and he didn't even know what you were doing. Lee was on the other night. They feel it. Even a man who occurs like a wall, your words aren't going to penetrate, but he's biologically programmed to be impacted by that energy. Now, if he's just zoned out, he's flatlined, he's not busy, you actually can feel that it would serve him to wake up to more aliveness, then I would invite you to go in with a bit of a bigger energy. And that's where the holding the pose comes in. So one of the things Lee's been in a lot of programs with me. So we bring the wind, we're like, I have the courage, I learned this new thing, I'm gonna bring the wind. And then the moment it doesn't go well, we take it back. We decide it's not a bad time, or we're like, what's wrong with him? Or we blame them. It might take longer than you want it to take. You might have to be in what feels unbearable position of trying an energy that feels good at first and then really silly or embarrassing or weird. If he's not responding, our brain just conjures up all those reasons to quit. They are slower. You know, most men, you and I have very like thick men, like they're wonderful because they are not rocked by anything. But it takes a few minutes sometimes to penetrate. The wind, like they could be standing in a windstorm and not notice it's windy until the furniture blows off the deck. So you might need to be the wind for more than like feels comfortable. Does that make sense? Yeah. Krista, would you have other things to add to Lee in this kind of art?
Yeah, thanks for your question, Lee. I really appreciate you volunteering. What comes up for me, and this is a little bit of a different angle, is, when I noticed that I'm facing a wall, I noticed there's a lot of different energies that can come up. I can get rageful, I can get furious, I can be like, well, what about me? And I can be like all these things. But what I noticed that really makes a difference for me when I want to penetrate that wall is, and I think some of us have read Viktor Frankl's book where he talks about there's a gap between stimulus and response. And it's like, if the stimulus happens and the response happens right away, it's like, I'm just going to bang right up against that wall. If I get furious or whatever, like pout. But if I like center myself, and kind of like what you're saying, Allie, is like getting in contact with myself of like, what do I need? What do I desire? I'm okay over here. What actually feels good in this moment? And I center myself before trying to penetrate the wall. Then when I come to the wall, I bring a lot of like just gentle feminine curiosity and a deep listening to what's there. And then I'll share impact from a very centered way of like, hey, like I feel like XYZ, or it seems like XYZ. And, it's kind of this other feminine way of using communication, not as much energy, but to really start to take a nice wet rag to that hard wall and start to understand what's going on.
Love that. Awesome. And then I'm just going to answer really quickly your second question. So how a man wins is you are happy. So he's winning if you are happy. So the more you allow yourself to authentically own your desires and bring them, and don't, there's no pretending here, there's no going like stuffing it down, but then when he shows up the way you want him to, you turn it up. Most of us are suppressed on both ends. The rage Krista talked about, we're not, we practice unleashing these bigger emotions with an open heart in service of love. I have practiced that for years. For me, anger used to be such a contracting thing. I was so critical and judgmental. And so then my first course of action was I suppressed it all. But then I was just suppressing energy. I was suppressing aliveness. So now when it fits, when rage is, you unleash, like imagine if we had taken that storm that you became and took that to like, you became a volcano, you became like destruction itself. It's super hot. It is aliveness because there's so much energy in it. The key is your heart has to be open. If you're like, shooting daggers that are from a closed, contracted place, that's not going to open much in the moment. But the open-heartedness, the service of love, it does. So on that piece, like, and then when on the opposite end, there can be this way that women are, if like he finally does it, where we're like, well, finally, versus you took the trash out, or oh my God, Chinese, my favorite. It feels fake, and at first for many of us. And I had a good friend who first introduced me to this work, and she was like, oh, and I was like, I'm not like you. I can't do that. She's like, are you kidding me? Like I used to throw up inside my mouth when I would do it. There comes a point when if you're willing, if you walk this path, I've been walking this path for a long time. Some of you may not want to go there. You might not want to choose this. Where your authentic joy of getting what you want, where you surrender the disappointments of the past and the fact that they didn't give it to you right away, all of that is just history. It's just the history of all the people who let you down, fear of trusting and not being met. You get met this one time, and the times you weren't met or the times you won't be met come up. In the moment, delight, just allowing the delight of having something that you want to show. It's a muscle, it's a skill. I say it like it's easy. I promise you, even though I live this, I teach it, I've been studying it forever, there's still plenty of times I don't do it. So I'm not putting this out there like it is. Yes, Lynette saying, I want to learn how to praise and appreciate like a 5-year-old would. It's kind of like that. And it's an invitation, and it should be your version. Like not everybody's version is going to be like that, but figuring out what your version of yum, yes, and really turning the volume up a little higher than you probably habitually do. And this actually gets to Debbie's question. She said, I need to learn how to not take control. Yeah, I mean, that is one of the key doorways to opening to some of this. It's a muscle. There's so much in the world that has trained us to lead, to take control, to handle things. And there's a lot that's so healthy and valuable in that. So we don't want to undo that. We want conscious access to an alternative, like Krista said, a moment to choose. And in an intimate moment with a partner, taking control is often not the thing that's going to create the moment we want. It doesn't mean we shouldn't do it at work. It doesn't mean we shouldn't do it with the kids. There are plenty of opportunities in life that are an ask, a demand for us to take control. And my invitation on this masculine, feminine embracing in these dynamics is to look for moments that you don't have to. It's not being asked for, and it might actually be suppressing what you really want to feel in the moment. And start small. You know, maybe you let him order a drink for you. He probably, if you're in a long-term partnership, he probably already knows your favorite drink. It really isn't that risky to let him order for you, or choose something that feels low risk. You don't need to go for like the highest bar thing. All right, gals, we are at the hour. Krista, it is such a pleasure to be here with you. Any last comments for the women? And also, if people wanted to learn about your programs or get in touch with you, how could they do that?
Thanks, Allie. Thank you so much for having me. It's just a joy. I think we as women need each other to be in this exploration. And I can say for me, it's a forever growth path. And if you're interested, you can find me at KristaVanDerveer.com. So that's Krista, Krista, VanDerveer.com. Thanks, Allie.
I'm just typing that in the chat. Most of you have my email address in here. I'm typing that in the chat. I know that there are a lot more questions that got asked here. So I am offering anyone who wants a free call with me. I so value you coming and participating in this experience. And I really want people to have this in their lives. So in the follow-up email that'll go out from this, I'll send a link. If you just heard me say it and your email goes to junk and spam or whatever, you can just email me if you would like that, and I can send you the link to book a free call with me. I would really be honored to share anything that might be of value to you on this path. And then if you want to go deeper, I have programs and things, and we could talk about that as well. So with all of that said, I really am just loving being here with all of you. I invite you to join us again tomorrow night. I will have another radiant feminine being with her own divine take on this whole kind of idea of hot monogamy, keeping it juicy and long-term relationships. Same time, same Zoom link. Tomorrow, we're going to be going into the last skill, and I kind of teed it up tonight, which is devotion. And it is truly what has been my access to taking on a lot of these new behaviors, to move from fix and change to honoring something larger than ourselves. It is really what allows us to turn the corner from this feeling like work to it being a calling, to it actually calling us forward. So we'll be looking at some of that tomorrow night, and I'll be answering questions live if you want to bring them then. If you decide you were too shy tonight, but maybe tomorrow you won't be. Or you can email to me in advance your question, and I'll also try and answer some of those live. All right, it is just the hour now. Thank you to everyone who joined us. Such a pleasure, Krista. Oh my God, we need to do like a podcast or something, because there's so much more I want to dive into with you. Beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Allie.
Pleasure. Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.